Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into the FIRE movement.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be using Scott Rieckens' book, Playing with Fire,
Okay.
along with a few other resources that you've shared with me.
Yeah.
Um, I think we all know what FIRE is, financial independence, retire early.
Right.
But what we're going to try to do is go beyond just what FIRE is and get into how it really changes people's lives.
Yeah.
Those aha moments, the struggles that people have, and really get into whether it lives up to the hype.
It's so fascinating how the book really dives into all of that, like the personal stories, the struggles,
Yeah.
does it actually work?
Yeah, yeah. And I think you'll be surprised when we get into it,
Mhm.
just to see how diverse the paths to FIRE can be.
Yeah.
I mean, even people on average incomes. I was really surprised by this.
Mm.
And it really challenges some assumptions I think we all have
Definitely.
about who can achieve FIRE.
Yeah. And like when we get into it later, there's that incredible story about a family of 7
Yeah.
achieving FIRE on a $60,000 income.
Yeah. And we're going to definitely unpack that.
Yeah.
But before we get into those inspiring stories, let's back up
Okay.
and just kind of make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
What exactly is FIRE, and what are some of the core principles?
Okay, so FIRE, basically, it's all about achieving financial independence so you can retire early.
Okay.
But it's not about just like sitting on a beach and being lazy all day.
Right.
It's more about like having options and designing a life that you love.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about freedom and choice, not just early retirement.
Exactly, yeah.
So the book lays out some pretty clear principles, like spending less, saving more,
Yeah.
and investing wisely.
Right.
So that sounds pretty straightforward, right?
It does, but, putting it into practice, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
The book really pushes for a really high savings rate, like 50 to 70%,
Whoa, okay.
which is way more than most people save.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it really pushes low-cost index funds when it comes to investing.
We're going to get into those index funds. They're kind of like a recurring theme in this world.
Totally.
But the book does a good job, I think, of talking about some of these misconceptions about FIRE.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just for the wealthy, right?
No, not at all. Like one of the big things you learn is it's not really about how much you make.
Okay.
It's about how much you save.
Interesting.
So it's really that savings rate, not your income, that drives your progress towards FIRE.
And it's not about deprivation either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to live like a monk to achieve FIRE.
No, not at all.
It seems like the book really stresses intentional spending
Yeah.
and aligning your expenses with your values.
Yeah, so like finding joy in experiences and relationships rather than material stuff.
Right.
So maybe you spend less on clothes and more on travel if that's what makes you happy.
Yeah, if that aligns with your values.
Exactly.
And just because you retire early doesn't mean you stop working altogether.
Right.
The book really dives into how so many people who achieve FIRE continue working,
Mm-hmm.
but in fields that they're passionate about on their own terms.
Yeah, it's about having the option to work, not the obligation.
I like that distinction.
It's all about freedom, baby.
Yeah.
Freedom and flexibility.
Freedom and flexibility, that's FIRE.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed throughout the book is how much it stresses community
Oh, yeah, totally.
in this whole FIRE thing, like finding support, sharing knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and really just not feeling like you're on this crazy journey alone.
Absolutely. It's a huge part of it. Finding your people who get it,
Yeah, your tribe.
Yeah, your tribe.
Okay, so we've got the FIRE basics down, but let's get to the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
How much money do you actually need for FIRE?
That's the million-dollar question,
Sure.
right? Literally.
Haha.
But there's no magic number.
Okay,
It all depends on, like, your lifestyle and how much you spend.
makes sense.
It introduces this thing called the 4% rule.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. It basically means you can safely withdraw 4% of your investments every year once you've saved 25 times your yearly expenses.
Okay, so let's say I spend $40,000 a year.
Okay.
I need $1 million saved.
Yeah, basically.
That sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot. But remember, that's your spending after you hit FIRE.
Okay.
And the book is packed with ways to cut down your expenses.
Oh, okay.
It really focuses on what it calls the big 3,
Oh.
which is housing, transportation, and food.
Those are big expenses for sure.
Yeah, and that's where you can make the biggest difference.
So let's talk strategies. How are people cutting expenses in those big 3 areas?
Well, the book talks a lot about how downsizing your house, relocating, or even having roommates can make a huge impact.
Okay, makes sense.
Then there's transportation,
Yeah.
buying used cars, driving less, maybe even getting rid of a car altogether.
Okay.
And then food, of course.
Yeah, groceries can get expensive.
Totally. So the book talks about, cooking at home, Meal planning, buying in bulk, that kind of thing.
Classic budgeting advice.
Right. But it's more than just saving money.
Yeah.
It's about really thinking about where you're spending your money
Yeah.
and making choices that align with your values.
So it's almost like Marie Kondoing your finances.
Totally. Does this expense spark joy?
Right. Exactly. And the book is full of all these creative, resourceful ways to be frugal, like DIY projects, travel hacking,
Yeah.
even buying things secondhand.
Exactly.
It really emphasizes that it's not about deprivation, it's about making conscious choices.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all of this sounds great in theory, but how do you actually get started with FIRE?
That's a great question, and the book is really clear about this.
Okay.
First, you got to figure out your why. Like, what is your ideal life? Why is FIRE important to you?
Oh, I love that emphasis on the why. That's so much more powerful than just a financial goal.
Right. It's got to be personal.
Yeah, it's about your vision for your life.
Exactly.
Okay, so you figure out your why. What's next?
Then it's all about taking control of your money.
Okay.
Track your spending, make a budget, set some savings goals.
Yeah.
Aim for that 50 to 70% savings rate, but be patient.
Okay.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right, it's a journey.
Exactly.
And find a supportive community.
Yes. Find your tribe. It makes such a difference.
The book really makes a strong case for that.
Totally.
And it makes sense this is a big lifestyle change.
Yeah, it's not always easy, but it's so much easier with support.
Right, and patience is key.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't some get-rich-quick scheme.
No, definitely not. It's about playing the long game.
Okay, we've talked about the practical side of FIRE.
Yeah.
But what about the emotional challenges?
Oh, good point.
I imagine it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, you're right. And the book doesn't sugarcoat it.
Okay.
Like, social isolation can be tough.
Oh, yeah.
Your friends might not understand why you're suddenly saying no to those expensive dinners or vacations.
Right.
And then there's that potential to feel deprived. Yeah.
Or even guilty, like you're constantly restricting yourself.
Yeah, I can see that.
And what about that constant focus on money?
Oh, yeah.
It can lead to anxiety, stress, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
So how do you address these challenges?
Well, it all comes back to your why.
Yeah.
If you have a strong sense of purpose, it's easier to deal with those feelings of deprivation or social pressure.
Makes sense.
And finding a supportive community, as we said before, is crucial.
Right. Your tribe.
Exactly. And remember, money is just a tool.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a tool to help you achieve a fulfilling life, not the goal in itself.
So it sounds like focusing on happiness throughout this whole journey is just as important as reaching that financial destination.
Exactly. It's about creating a life you love, not just a fat bank account.
Now, let's talk about the ethical considerations surrounding FIRE.
Okay.
Some people argue that it creates this disconnect from societal responsibilities.
Yeah, like you're opting out. Right, exactly. What does the book have to say about that?
It's a great question, and the book acknowledges those concerns.
Yeah.
Like, if everyone retired early, who would do all the work?
Right.
But it also points out that a lot of people who achieve FIRE continue to work,
Okay.
just in different ways, maybe through volunteering or creative projects.
So it's not about dropping out of society,
No, not necessarily.
but maybe changing how you contribute.
Exactly.
Now, there's also this concern about elitism and inequality with FIRE. Like it's easier for those with higher incomes
Yeah.
to achieve.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
What does the book say about that?
The book doesn't shy away from that criticism,
Okay.
but it also stresses that the principles of FIRE can apply to anyone.
Regardless of their income. It's
Exactly.
about adapting those principles to your own situation.
Right.
Now, what about the environmental impact?
Oh, interesting.
FIRE often encourages frugality.
Yeah.
But isn't there a potential conflict there, especially when you consider things like travel,
That's a good point.
which is often a big part of the FIRE lifestyle?
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile those two things?
You know, the book doesn't really have a clear-cut answer for that.
Okay.
It promotes mindful consumption, but acknowledges that travel can be a big part of FIRE.
Yeah.
I think it's something that the whole FIRE community needs to think more about.
It's an ongoing conversation.
Absolutely.
So it seems like there's not just one FIRE lifestyle.
Right.
The book talks about a lot of different approaches,
Yeah.
right?
There's a whole spectrum.
Like some people are really hardcore about frugality,
Mm-hmm.
while others are more moderate.
Yeah, and some people focus on things like geographic arbitrage,
Okay.
moving to cheaper places to make their money go further.
All right.
Some people start businesses or side hustles to speed up their FIRE journey.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to approach it.
Exactly.
Now, let's imagine for a second that FIRE goes completely mainstream.
Whoa. Okay.
What might that look like?
Yeah.
What are some potential impacts?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
The book talks about some possible economic and social impacts.
Okay.
Like we might see a big change in consumer spending
Mm-hmm.
with less demand for stuff people don't really need.
Right.
And maybe a surge in demand for alternative investments like index funds and real estate.
Oh, interesting.
And what about the job market?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Would there be labor shortages?
Yeah.
Or would it lead to more people starting their own businesses?
Right.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
Holy.
But it'd be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Absolutely.
I'm really intrigued by all these personal stories in the book.
Oh, yeah, they're so good.
Should we dive into some of those now?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with Scott Rieckens himself.
Okay.
I mean, his whole discovery of FIRE is a great example of how just one podcast can completely change your life.
Yeah, totally.
He was listening to Tim Ferriss interviewing Mr. Money Mustache on his commute.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic episode.
Right. And he was just struck by Mr. Money Mustache's story
Yeah.
about retiring at 30 on a modest budget.
It's inspiring, right?
Yeah, it really challenged his assumptions about wealth and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it opened his eyes to a different way of living.
It's amazing how one person's story can have such an impact.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Right.
And it wasn't just the early retirement that appealed to him.
Right.
It was the whole idea of optimizing his life for happiness, not just accumulating wealth.
Yeah, finding fulfillment,
Yeah.
living intentionally.
And this idea of simple living really resonated with him, even though he was living a totally different lifestyle at the time.
Right, he was living the California dream, but he was still searching for something more.
And the book mentions this latte factor calculator,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
which seemed to be a real turning point for
And
him.
it's eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah. So explain that a little bit for our listeners who haven't heard of that.
Basically, it's a tool that shows you how much money you could potentially earn if you invested the money you spend on, like coffee or other small things.
Okay.
So Rieckens plugged in his daily Starbucks habit, and the calculator showed him that over 30 years, those lattes would cost him over $57,000.
Wow. Okay.
But if he invested that same amount instead,
Yeah.
he could have over $133,000.
That's incredible.
It is. It really shows the power of compound interest.
Yeah, those small expenses really add up over time.
I do.
But it's not just about the money.
Right.
It's about making conscious choices that align with your long-term goals.
Yeah, prioritizing what's important to you.
Now, Regan's initial enthusiasm for FIRE wasn't fully shared by his wife, Taylor. That's where the 10 things exercise comes in.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Can you explain that a bit?
So basically, they each wrote down 10 things that made them happy each week.
Okay.
And then they compared their lists to their actual spending.
Interesting.
And what they found was there was this disconnect.
Oh.
They were spending money on things that didn't actually align with their values.
So their lists were full of things like family time, connecting with loved ones, nature.
Yeah.
But their spending was often directed towards things that didn't reflect those priorities.
Exactly.
So it wasn't about deprivation.
Right.
It was about consciously choosing to spend on what truly mattered to them.
Yeah, aligning your spending with your values.
Okay, let's move on to another inspiring story.
Okay.
The book features Jillian, a mother of 7.
7 kids.
Yeah, 7 kids who achieved FIRE on a $60,000 average income.
I know, it's amazing.
I'm eager to hear how she did it.
So Jillian and her husband Adam were incredibly frugal from the start because they even lived in a camper to save money on housing.
Wow, that's dedication.
They're serious about FIRE.
Living in a camper with a family is no small feat.
No, it's not.
So that's amazing.
They were committed to their goal.
Yeah.
And it paid off. They prioritized paying off debt.
Okay.
And then they started investing in rental properties.
Okay, so they used real estate as a path to building wealth.
Exactly.
And they didn't wait until full retirement to enjoy the benefits of their efforts.
Right. They took these mini retirements.
Yeah, mini retirements. I love that term.
It's such a good idea.
So tell me more about these mini retirements.
So basically, they took sabbaticals to travel, to adopt children,
Wow.
to really savor the freedom that FIRE provides.
It's like taking little chunks of retirement throughout your life.
Exactly.
Instead of waiting until the very end.
Yeah, it's a way to enjoy the journey, not just the destination.
And it shows that you can customize FIRE to fit your own unique lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So it's a testament to the power of frugality,
Yeah.
even on a modest income.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that with careful planning and commitment, FIRE is attainable
For sure.
for people who are willing to make the choices
Yeah, it's all about choices.
and put in the work.
It's about prioritizing what's truly important to you.
Jillian's story is super inspiring.
It is.
It shows that it's not about deprivation. It's about making choices that align with your priorities and
Absolutely.
that move you closer to your goals.
Exactly. It's really inspiring, right? Like, you don't need to be making a ton of money
Yeah,
to make FIRE work.
it's about making those choices
Yeah.
and being resourceful.
Exactly.
Speaking of resourceful, the book also features Todd,
Oh, yeah.
who is pursuing FIRE in New York City,
Oh, wow.
which is, as we all know,
Yeah.
a very expensive place to live.
Notoriously expensive.
I can't even imagine trying to do FIRE in New York City.
It's definitely challenging, but Todd shows it's possible.
Okay.
It might take a bit longer
Right.
or require some adjustments, but it can be done.
So how did Todd approach FIRE in such an expensive city?
Well, he and his wife, Charlotte, made some strategic career moves.
Okay.
Initially, they had these low-paying jobs in the arts,
Oh,
and they realized that to reach FIRE in New York, they needed to earn more.
so they transitioned to careers that paid better, but still aligned with their passions.
Exactly. They found a way to bridge the gap between their love for the arts and their FIRE goals.
I love that.
Yeah.
So they're like enjoying the vibrant city life,
Yeah,
but still staying true to their financial goals.
they really are. And their story really highlights the importance of community.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
It's so important, especially when you're making choices that might seem unconventional to others.
Right, finding your people who understand.
Exactly. It's all about finding your tribe.
Exactly.
Speaking of unconventional choices,
Okay.
Chapter 4 really gets into the nitty-gritty of cutting expenses.
Okay.
And it starts with these small, everyday expenses.
Oh, yeah.
The kind we often overlook.
Yeah, I feel like I'm guilty of that.
Oh, we all are. It's so easy to do.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
Well, Rieckens and his wife, Taylor, they took a close look at their daily spending.
Okay.
And guess what? They were averaging $345 a day.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Right. It
Yeah.
really makes you stop and think.
Yeah, where's all that money going?
Exactly. That's what the chapter is all about.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Okay.
You can't change your spending habits if you don't know where your money's going.
It's so true.
So it's all about tracking, big and small, seeing the big picture.
Right.
The book even mentions this thing called the latte factor calculator.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, it's this tool that shows you the long-term impact of those seemingly insignificant expenses.
Okay.
So Rieckens used it to see what his daily Starbucks habit would cost him over 30 years.
Yeah, and
Over $57,000.
wow.
But if he invested that same amount, over $133,000.
That's insane. It's like you're throwing away a small fortune.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
crazy how those small expenses can snowball over time.
So what did Rieckens do? Did he quit Starbucks cold turkey?
He started making small changes, like skipping the Starbucks run a few days a week and brewing his coffee at home.
Yeah.
It was a symbolic shift, choosing long-term goals over that immediate gratification.
Right. Those little choices can add up.
They can.
And it's not just about coffee. It's about recognizing those expenses that might be holding you back
Absolutely.
from achieving your dreams.
Yeah, sometimes we gotta make tough choices.
Yeah, and in Chapter 5, Rieckens tackles a big one,
Okay.
selling his beloved Toyota Tundra truck.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
I bet that was a hard decision.
It was, especially for Taylor, his wife.
Right.
She was really attached to that truck.
Yeah, it represented a certain lifestyle. Right.
Exactly. Their adventures, their freedom.
But ultimately, they realized it didn't align with their FIRE goals.
Right. It was a symbol of their old spending habits and
Yeah.
a drain on their finances.
So they sold the truck
Mm-hmm.
and replaced it with 2 smaller, more fuel-efficient cars.
Yep.
It was a tough choice,
Yeah,
but it freed up a lot of money each month.
it did. Money they could now put towards FIRE.
And it forced them to confront their assumptions
Mm.
about what they really needed versus what they just wanted.
It's a good exercise for all of us, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes we got to let go of things to move forward.
And sometimes those sacrifices lead to amazing experiences.
Oh, tell me more.
Like in Chapter 7, Rieckens and his family hit the road
Okay.
for a year-long adventure.
Wow, a whole year.
Yeah, which seems counterintuitive, right?
It does. Like, how do you travel extensively
Yeah.
while also pursuing FIRE?
Right. But they found a way to make it work.
How? Wow.
That's where the concept of geo-arbitrage comes in.
Okay, remind me what that is.
It's basically about intentionally choosing to live in places with a lower cost of living,
Ah.
especially for housing.
So they traveled to places where their money would go further.
Exactly. They spent time in Thailand, Portugal, and other countries
That's amazing.
where they could really stretch their budget.
Wow, so they were experiencing different cultures while still saving money.
And staying on track with their FIRE goals.
It's like having your cake and eating it, too.
Exactly. And they downsized their belongings drastically.
Oh, wow, they embraced minimalism.
They did. They sold or stored most of their stuff.
That's a big step.
It was. It was a symbolic shift, a way of letting go of the old and embracing this new way of living.
It's like they were decluttering their lives.
Yeah.
Both physically and mentally.
Right. Getting rid of the excess baggage.
Yeah, focusing on experiences and relationships over material things.
That must have been so liberating.
It was, for sure. It's a good reminder that FIRE is not just about money.
Go.
It's about creating a life that aligns with your values.
Yeah.
A life that is rich in experiences, not just stuff.
Right. And the book also features Kaylin and Kyle,
Yeah.
who found FIRE as a way to combat this feeling of millennial depression.
Oh, yeah, that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people can relate to that.
Definitely.
That feeling of disillusionment with the traditional path, you know, student loan debt,
Yeah.
uncertain job prospects,
Yeah.
just this feeling of overwhelm about the future.
It's a lot to deal with.
So how did FIRE help them?
It gave them a sense of control, you know?
Okay.
A way to take charge of their lives. Yeah.
And create a future they could actually look forward to.
It's amazing how FIRE can empower people
It is.
to take control of their finances and their
Yeah.
lives.
Totally.
So what did Kaylin and Kyle do?
They embraced conscious spending, minimalism.
Okay.
They found joy in simpler pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
They downsized their apartment, got rid of their car,
Wow.
and started walking more.
So they really simplified their lives.
They did.
Yeah.
And they found that financial security could be a foundation for freedom and happiness.
That's so inspiring.
It is. Their story highlights that it's about aligning your choices
Yeah.
with your values and finding fulfillment beyond just work.
Okay, so now in Chapter 8, Rieckens really dives into the world of investing.
Okay. Yeah.
And it seems like he had a major aha moment
Mm-hmm.
when he finally understood index funds.
Oh, yeah. Index funds are a game changer.
So for our listeners who aren't familiar,
Okay.
what exactly is an index fund?
So basically, it's a type of mutual fund.
That tracks a specific market index like the S&P 500. Instead of trying to pick individual stocks,
Right.
you're investing in a basket of stocks
Right.
that represents a whole segment of the market.
And why are index funds so popular in the FIRE world?
Well, they're low cost, they're diversified,
Oh.
and they have a proven track record of generating long-term returns.
So it's like a set it and forget it approach to investing,
Exactly. And they're easy to understand.
which aligns perfectly with the FIRE principle of simplifying your finances.
Totally. Even Warren Buffett recommends index funds for the average investor.
Wow, that's a pretty strong endorsement.
It is. He's a big fan.
And the book does a great job of explaining compound interest and how index funds can help you harness that growth over the long term.
Yeah, it's all about letting time and compound interest work their magic.
Rieckens really emphasizes patience and discipline in investing.
Right. It's a long game.
Yeah.
You got to stay the course, even when the market is going crazy.
He even meets J.L. Collins, who wrote The Simple Path to Wealth.
Oh, that's a classic FIRE book.
It is. It's like a must-read for anyone interested in index fund investing.
Absolutely.
So Rieckens is getting all this great advice and inspiration, but he's also seeking practical guidance.
Right.
And he turns to Brandon Ganch, the mad scientist.
Oh, yeah, he's a FIRE legend.
He is. He's known for his hardcore approach to FIRE.
Yeah, he's all about frugality and optimization.
So what kind of advice did Ganch give Rieckens?
Well, he challenged him to think bigger, to focus on those big wins.
Okay.
Like housing and transportation.
So instead of sweating the small stuff, like cutting back on lattes,
Right.
Ganch is saying, go for the big expenses.
Exactly. That's where you can make the biggest impact.
It's not just about reducing expenses.
Right.
It's also about increasing your income.
Totally.
Ganch introduced Rieckens to this concept of dollar cost averaging.
Okay, can you break that down for us?
So basically, instead of investing a big chunk of money all at once, you invest a fixed amount at regular intervals,
Okay.
regardless of the share price.
So like $500 every month, no matter what.
Exactly. It helps mitigate the risk of investing all your money at the wrong time.
Makes sense.
It's about taking the emotion out of investing and just being disciplined.
It's a great strategy, especially for beginners.
And Ganch also provided some valuable insights
Right.
into accessing retirement funds early without penalties.
Oh, that's a tricky one.
It is?
Because those traditional retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs
Yeah.
usually have a 10% penalty for early withdrawal.
Right, before age 59, 12.
Exactly.
So how do you get around that?
Well, Ganch talked about strategies like the Roth conversion ladder
Okay.
and Rule 72T, which can be super helpful for those aiming for early retirement.
Those are some advanced strategies.
They are, but the book and these resources provide a good overview
Yep.
and point you in the right direction for more information.
It's great that the book gives you that starting point.
Totally. It's about empowering people to take control of their finances.
Now, the book also features Sylvia, a lawyer who embraced fire after a life-changing experience.
Oh, wow. What happened?
She lost nearly everything in Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, that's devastating.
It was, but it was also a wake-up call for her.
How so?
It made her realize the importance of financial security.
Yeah, especially in the face of unforeseen events.
Exactly. The experience of losing all her material possessions really shifted her perspective.
It's like it made her realize what truly matters.
Yeah, she realized that true security came from financial stability, from knowing she could handle anything life threw at her.
That makes sense.
So she made some big changes to her financial habits.
She did. She became incredibly frugal, even working extra jobs to pay off her student loans as quickly as possible.
Wow, that's commitment.
It is, and she kept those frugal habits even as her income increased.
So she avoided lifestyle creep.
She did. She was determined to stay on track.
That's so inspiring.
It is.
It shows how a major life event can be a catalyst for change.
Yeah. Making you reevaluate your priorities.
Right, and making choices that really reflect what's important to you.
Absolutely. And sometimes those difficult experiences can lead us to unexpected places.
Okay, tell me more.
In Chapter 10, Rieckens returns to his childhood home in Bellevue, Iowa.
Okay.
And he encounters a different kind of frugality,
Oh, interesting.
like a way of life that's deeply rooted in the culture.
So he goes back to his roots, expecting to introduce this whole fire concept to his family.
Yeah, he thought he was bringing something new.
But what he finds is that his family has always lived frugally.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
They've always prioritized needs over wants,
Mm-hmm.
found joy in simple pleasures,
Right.
and avoided excessive debt
So they were already living the fire principles?
without even realizing it.
That's amazing.
Right, it was a humbling experience for him,
Yeah,
realizing he had kind of forgotten these
Yeah.
values
Yeah.
of simplicity and contentment that he grew up with.
It's a good reminder that fire isn't just a trend.
Right.
It's a timeless philosophy.
It's about getting back to basics,
Yeah.
appreciating the simple things in life,
Mm-hmm.
and finding contentment in what you already have.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means making difficult choices, even when it comes to your dreams.
Oh, I can relate to that.
In Chapter 11, Rieckens and Taylor are house hunting
Okay.
in Bend, Oregon,
Beautiful place.
and they find their dream home.
Oh, nice. But I bet there's a catch.
There is.
What is it?
It's way too expensive.
Oh, no. So they're faced with this dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
the dream house or the dream life.
Exactly. It's a tough choice.
I bet it was an emotional roller coaster.
It was, but they ultimately withdrew their offer.
Wow, that's a big decision.
It was.
So they chose fire over the dream house.
They did. It was a mature decision
Mm-hmm.
that shows their commitment to their long-term vision.
They didn't let their emotions get the best of them.
No, they didn't.
They chose a more modest, affordable home that allowed them to stay on track with their fire goals.
Right, while still enjoying the Bend lifestyle.
Exactly. It's a reminder that achieving fire often involves making sacrifices.
Yeah.
But those sacrifices are investments in your future happiness.
It's about prioritizing your long-term vision
Yeah.
over those immediate desires.
It's not always easy, but it's worth it.
And the book features another inspiring story.
Okay, who is it this time?
Hannah, whose story is both tragic and incredibly inspiring.
Oh, wow. I'm intrigued.
A devastating wildfire forced her and her family to reevaluate everything.
Oh, wow. That's terrible.
It was a horrible experience, but it also had a profound impact on them.
How sad.
It made her realize the impermanence of material possessions.
That's right. When you lose everything, it really puts things into perspective.
Exactly. And it made her realize the importance of financial security
Mm-hmm.
in times of crisis.
It's like when everything is stripped away,
Yeah.
you see what truly matters.
So what did Hannah and her family do?
They simplified their lives drastically, got rid of most of their belongings, focused on experiences over things.
Okay.
They even quit their jobs and went on a cross-country road trip.
With their kids.
Yeah, with their 2 young children.
That's amazing.
It was a bold move,
Yeah.
but it shows a deep level of trust and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
They were creating memories that would last a lifetime.
Exactly. And they eventually settled in Denver, where they found a balance between work, family, and fire.
Their story is so inspiring.
It is. It's about resilience, adaptability,
Yeah.
and the transformative power of adversity.
It shows how embracing minimalism and financial stability can create a sense of freedom and resilience.
Joy. Don't forget the joy.
Yes. And speaking of finding joy, in Chapter 12, Rieckens finally finds his tribe.
His tribe?
At Camp Mustache.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Camp Mustache.
It's this annual gathering of fire enthusiasts.
Sounds like fun.
It is. It's like finding your people.
Yeah.
Those who understand your journey and share your passion.
It must be so validating.
It is, especially when you face skepticism from others.
Right, because not everyone gets fire.
Yeah, Rieckens had been feeling isolated, facing pushback from friends and family.
Yeah, it can be tough when the people you love don't understand.
But at Camp Mustache, he was surrounded by like-minded people who were on the same path.
I bet it was like a breath of fresh air.
It was. He learned from experienced fire folks, attended workshops, and formed lasting connections.
It's a reminder that community is so important.
Yeah, you don't have to go through this alone.
Exactly.
And in the final chapter, Chapter 13, Rieckens reflects on the growing popularity of fire and how it's impacted his life.
It's like a moment of reflection.
Yeah, looking back on the journey and all the changes he's made.
So what are his final thoughts?
He realizes that fire is about so much more than just financial independence. It's about aligning your life with your values.
Yeah.
Finding meaning and purpose outside of work. And using your money to create a life you truly love.
It's about living authentically.
Yeah.
And intentionally.
He sees how fire can empower people. To design their own lives, prioritize their families, pursue their passions, and contribute to their communities in meaningful ways.
It's a powerful message.
It is. It's a message of hope and possibility.
Totally.
And a reminder that we have the power to create the lives we want.
I love that.
And the book ends with this 7-step guide to fire.
Oh, that's helpful.
Like a practical roadmap for anyone who's ready to get started.
So it breaks down the process into manageable steps.
It does, making it seem less daunting.
That's great.
And it emphasizes that fire is not one size fits all, but a flexible framework that you can adapt to your own circumstances and goals.
It's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
It's your journey.
Now, in addition to the book itself, we have some other resources you shared that provide even more insights into fire.
I love having multiple perspectives.
Yeah, they offer a really good summary of the core lessons and key takeaways from playing with fire.
So it's a good way to synthesize the information.
Yeah, and really identify the most important points.
Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways?
Well, first and foremost, fire is not just about the money.
Right. It's about so much more than that.
It's about aligning your financial choices with your values.
Yeah.
Finding meaning and purpose outside of work and using money as a tool to create a life you love.
Life that is both financially secure and fulfilling.
Exactly. And these resources emphasize that fire is achievable for many, but it requires commitment, discipline, and a willingness to challenge those conventional norms.
It's about embracing a different way of thinking about money and work.
Exactly.
So it's not for everyone.
Right.
But it's a powerful concept for those who resonate with it.
And they really stress those key principles like saving a significant portion of your income, investing wisely, and embracing a frugal yet fulfilling lifestyle.
It's about finding that balance between saving and enjoying life.
And they also highlight the importance of patience, flexibility, and finding a supportive community.
Your tribe.
Your tribe, to help you stay motivated
Absolutely.
and navigate those challenges.
It's so much easier when you have people who understand.
And they also delve into the personal side of Rieckens' journey.
Yeah, that's what makes the book so engaging.
It's not just a dry financial guide.
Right. It's a story about a real person
Yeah.
who is looking for something more.
He was driven by this desire to reclaim control of his time, reduce his financial stress, and really prioritize his family.
Those are goals a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, he was feeling trapped in the rat race, working long hours, struggling to find balance in his life.
So fire gave him a way out.
It did. It gave him a way to break free and design a life that aligned with his values.
That's powerful.
And it all started with a chance encounter.
Okay, tell me about it.
With a podcast featuring Mr. Money Mustache.
Oh, yeah. He's a fire icon.
He is. And that podcast interview was a pivotal moment for Rieckens.
I can see why.
It introduced him to the basic tenets of fire and challenged his assumptions about wealth and happiness.
So Mr. Money Mustache retired at 30?
Yeah.
On a pretty modest budget?
Exactly.
It's like he showed Rieckens that financial independence was possible even without winning the lottery or being a CEO.
Right. It opened up a whole new world of possibility.
And it wasn't just about early retirement. It was about the freedom and flexibility that financial independence could provide.
Exactly.
The opportunity to design a life based on your passion.
So it shifted Rieckens' mindset from consumerism to financial awareness. He started questioning his spending habits. And looking for ways to optimize his life for happiness.
Not just for accumulating more stuff.
Exactly. He embraced frugality, prioritized experiences over possessions, and really started making those changes to his financial planning.
It was a major lifestyle shift.
It was, but it was driven by this deep desire to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life for himself and his family.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. And as we discussed before, community played a big role in his journey. He faced some skepticism early on.
Oh, yeah.
From friends and family who didn't quite understand.
It can be isolating. You're doing something different.
Yeah, but he found his tribe at Camp Mustache.
Right, that annual gathering of fire enthusiasts.
Where he connected with like-minded people.
It's so important to have that support system.
It is. It can make all the difference.
So these resources, along with Rieckens' book, really highlight some key financial concepts and strategies that are essential for anyone pursuing fire.
So let's talk about some of those concepts.
Okay, let's start with compound interest.
Compound interest. The magic of compound interest.
That's like a snowball effect.
Right.
The earlier you start investing, the more time your money has to grow.
And the FIRE movement really stresses saving early and often, even if it's just small amounts.
Those small contributions add up over time.
And the book provides a great explanation of index funds,
which are a popular choice for FIRE folks.
Yeah, so remind us again, what's an index fund?
It's a type of mutual fund that tracks a specific market index. Like the S&P 500.
Right.
So instead of trying to pick individual stocks, you're investing in a basket of stocks that represent a whole segment of the market.
And they're low cost, diversified, and have a proven track record.
Exactly. They're a simple and effective way to invest.
And easy to manage, which is key.
Right. Less stress, more freedom.
The resources also talk about dollar cost averaging.
Oh, yeah, that's a great strategy.
It's all about investing consistently over time, regardless of market fluctuations.
It helps you stay disciplined and ride out those market ups and downs.
Exactly.
And the book also addresses accessing retirement funds early,
which can be tricky.
Yeah, because of those pesky penalties.
But it highlights some strategies,
right?
Like the Roth conversion ladder and Rule 72T.
Which can help you access those funds without penalties.
It's great that the book provides those specific strategies.
Totally. It gives people options.
Now, one thing that can really derail our financial goals is lifestyle creep.
Ugh. Lifestyle creep, the silent killer of financial dreams.
It's that tendency to increase our spending as our income goes up.
We get a raise and suddenly we need a bigger house or a fancier car.
Right. It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is. We get used to a certain standard of living and just keep raising the bar.
And it makes it so much harder to reach our financial goals.
The book shows how lifestyle creep can delay retirement by years.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's scary. It compares two couples with the same income.
Okay.
One couple spends a lot. The other couple lives more frugally.
And what happens?
The high spenders end up working years longer.
Wow.
Because they're saving less.
That's a powerful illustration.
It is. It shows that we need to be mindful of our spending.
Right. Resist that urge to constantly upgrade our lifestyle.
It's not about deprivation.
No.
It's about conscious choices.
Making choices that align with your values and your long-term goals.
And finding fulfillment in experiences, relationships, personal growth.
Not in material possessions. expert speaker.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus from stuff to what really matters.
The book and these resources also explore some interesting psychological concepts.
Oh, like what?
Like the latte factor and the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, those are good ones.
Yeah, they're both things that can really hinder our progress toward FIRE.
So tell me more about the latte factor.
Okay, it's all about those small, everyday expenses that add up over time.
Like our daily coffee habit.
Yeah, exactly. Or eating out for lunch every day.
It's easy to think, oh, it's just a few dollars.
Right. It doesn't seem like a big deal.
But it adds up.
It does. And the book uses this latte factor calculator to really show you the potential earnings from investing even small amounts consistently.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a great way to visualize the impact of those seemingly insignificant choices.
It really makes you think twice before buying that expensive latte.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of your spending.
Okay, now what about the sunk cost fallacy?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
I know. I struggle with that one sometimes.
Yeah, me too. It's that tendency to hold on to something because we've already invested time, money, or effort into it.
Even if it's no longer serving us. Like that old car that keeps breaking down.
Yeah, or a job you hate.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's tough to let go sometimes.
It is.
But the book really emphasizes recognizing and overcoming that sunk cost fallacy.
Okay.
So you can make rational financial decisions.
So it's about cutting your losses and moving on.
Right. Even if it feels hard at first.
It's about focusing on the future benefits.
Yeah.
Not dwelling on past investments.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but let's talk a little bit about the ethical considerations surrounding FIRE.
Okay, yeah, that's an important conversation.
Some people argue that it promotes a disconnect from societal responsibilities.
Like, you're just checking out.
Right, that it's a selfish pursuit.
Yeah.
That benefits individuals at the expense of the greater good.
So what do you think about that?
Well, the book acknowledges those arguments.
Okay.
It definitely raises some valid concerns about who will fill those roles in the workforce and contribute to society in traditional ways if everyone retires early.
That's a good point.
But the book and these resources also point out that a lot of FIRE enthusiasts plan to continue working in some capacity.
So it's not about completely dropping out of society.
No, it's more about redefining work and contribution.
So they might pursue passion projects or start their own businesses.
Exactly. It could even lead to more fulfilling and impactful work lives.
Oh, I like that.
Because people would be freed from the constraints of traditional employment and could really focus on what they're passionate about.
It's about aligning your work with your values.
Right. And it could also foster more innovation and entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because people with financial independence might be more likely to take risks and pursue their own ventures.
It could be a win-win.
Yeah, potentially.
So the impact of FIRE on society is really complex.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors to consider.
It's an ongoing conversation, and one that we need to keep having.
Absolutely. This deep dive into playing with FIRE and these related resources has been fascinating.
It really has. I learned a lot.
Me too. It's a topic that raises so many questions, and it's clear that there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Exactly. What aligns with your values and what brings you closer to your vision of a fulfilling life.
And while the book provides a roadmap, it's ultimately up to each individual to chart their own course.
Make their own choices and create their own definition of success.
Absolutely.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, what are some key takeaways?
Well, first, FIRE is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. It's a framework.
Yeah, a set of principles that can be adapted to your own life.
It's not about following a rigid set of rules.
No, it's about finding what works for you.
What aligns with your values. And what brings you closer to your own unique vision.
Exactly.
Second, FIRE is about more than just early retirement.
Right.
It's about financial independence, the ability to make choices based on what you truly want, not what you're obligated to do.
It's about having options.
Yes. Freedom to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, travel, or just live a life free from financial stress.
It's about designing a life you love.
And third, the FIRE journey is not a solitary pursuit.
Oh, definitely not.
Finding a supportive community,
a tribe,
connecting with like-minded people, learning from others can make all the difference.
It's so much easier when you have support.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
The book really focuses on the individual journey to FIRE, But what if we thought about the collective impact?
Oh, interesting.
What if FIRE principles were widely adopted?
Okay.
How would that change our society, our economy, our values?
That's a really thought-provoking question.
Would it lead to more freedom and purpose?
Yeah.
Or would it create new challenges?
It's definitely something to think about.
It's a conversation worth having.
Absolutely. We've only scratched the surface today, but hopefully this deep dive has sparked some curiosity and given you some valuable insights into FIRE.
Whether you're all in on FIRE, just curious, or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
The key is to find what resonates with you.
What aligns with your own values and aspirations?
It's about taking control of your financial future and designing a life that brings you joy,
purpose,
fulfillment.
And playing with FIRE.
Yeah.
And the resources we've discussed offer a wealth of information and inspiration for sure anyone who's ready to start that journey.
So until next time, keep those fires burning.
And we'll see you back here for another deep dive.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay updated on our latest episodes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.